To be a true Aries, forged through trials and tempered by time, is to embody the flame that refuses to flicker out. Born under the rulership of Mars, the god of war and courage, your soul entered this world not to whisper, but to roar. Yet you are no longer the reckless firebrand who charges without a plan. You are the warrior who has learned that even fire must be wielded with purpose, or else it consumes rather than creates. You have been bruised by the weight of your own impulsiveness, made mistakes born of speed over strategy, and learned, sometimes painfully, that not every battle is worth your blood. But you rose. Every misstep carved out your wisdom, every failure became fuel. And now, when people see your success, they see the blazing confidence, the leadership, the force of will that seems unshakable. What they don't see are the nights you questioned yourself, the mornings you started again when it would have been easier to quit, the relentless inner battles you fought to harness your raw energy and direct it toward mastery. You are Aries reborn, not softened but sharpened. You still move boldly, but now with vision. The world sees your victories and assumes they came naturally. They don't see the moments when your courage was chipped away, only to be reforged stronger than before. They think your passion is effortless, unaware of the discipline it takes to channel that fire into a focused inferno instead of chaotic sparks. You inspire because you are undeterred by the mountain. You don't fear being the first to climb, the one who risks everything without a safety net. But through your evolution, you've learned that true greatness isn't just being first. It's finishing with integrity, bringing others with you, and never losing your core truth in the process. That's the mark of the Aries who has matured, the Aries who has fought not only the world but also themselves and won. Your presence commands a room because you've earned that presence. Your energy is electric not because it's wild, but because it's controlled power. There's fire in your eyes, yes, but it is not the naive fire of youth. It is the steady blaze of someone who has walked through storms and lit torches for others in the dark. You are the embodiment of resilience and rebirth, a living testament to what happens when unstoppable drive meets unwavering self-awareness. Where others faltered, you found lessons. Where others saw defeat, you saw direction. You turned wounds into weapons, scars into stories, and setbacks into strategy. You are not a beginner's Aries. You are the seasoned warrior, the silent achiever who climbs the summit while others are still waiting for a sign. You don't need applause to validate your worth. You've already proved it to yourself in the solitude of effort. This is the Aries path. Fire that refines rather than destroys, a pioneer spirit grounded in purpose. You are a spark that never dies, no matter how long the night. You are the storm and the calm after it. And as the stars turn above, they speak your name in tones of reverence. Because you are not just an Aries. You are an Aries who has become. There is a sacred rage within a true Aries that does not fade with age. It transforms. It evolves from untamed bursts into a divine force that shapes worlds. Aries, as the first sign of the zodiac, represents birth, emergence, and the eternal fire of beginnings. Yet those born under this sign are not confined to a single act of creation. They are born to rise, fall, and rise again, always renewed, always burning brighter than before. Their story is not linear. It is a cycle of forging identity through challenge and reclaiming power with every fall. The celestial signature of Aries is cardinal fire, the spark that initiates and ignites. But the mature Aries does not burn out quickly, as the inexperienced once did. Instead, the flame grows steadier, more enduring, refined by hardship and spiritual awakening. You have learned to temper your temper, not by silencing your voice, but by learning when it roars the loudest and when silence becomes a sword. You understand now that true strength lies not only in striking but in knowing when to stand still and let others witness your inner blaze. Under the influence of Mars, you are a cosmic warrior, but not all battles are fought on open fields. Some of the hardest are internal. The war against impatience, the duel with ego, the battle to listen as deeply as you speak. You have fought through the recklessness of your youth, the fiery need to prove yourself, and emerged as a strategist of life. Now your ambition does not destroy, it builds. It crafts empires from rubble, dreams from discipline. Your fire now warms others, guides them, inspires them to find their own courage. The truth of your journey is that it has always been lonely at the frontier. Aries does not walk paths made by others. They carve them with blistered hands and an indomitable will. Pioneering is not a comfort. It is a calling. You were never meant to blend in. You were made to stand at the edge of the unknown, to jump where others hesitate, to light the way not because you were asked, but because you are the flame. Yet that solitude has taught you the weight of leadership, the price of visibility, and the deep personal victories that come when no one is watching. There is raw magic in your resilience. When others tried to box you in, you broke out and remade yourself. When life challenged you, you didn't just respond, you initiated change. You've learned that failure is not the enemy. It is the forge. And you, Aries, have been tempered by that fire, made stronger, faster, clearer in your intent. You are no longer a reaction. You are a force. You are movement, purpose, and the embodiment of divine will in motion. Astrologically, Aries represents the head, symbol of will, identity, and initiation. You lead not just because you can, but because your very essence commands it. You have vision not borrowed from the world, but born from within. You trust your instincts, honed now by wisdom and experience. You move forward not blindly, but bravely, driven by a compass forged in the fires of your own evolution. That instinct, once raw and reactive, is now sacred and strategic. You are guided not by impulse alone, but by an inner knowing, an ancient fire that speaks in the language of warriors and dreamers. Your presence is no longer a disruption. It is a declaration. You walk into rooms and change the frequency. You speak, and people listen not just because your words are loud, but because they are earned. You don't demand attention, you command it through the sheer power of your authenticity. People feel your fire and wonder how you carry it so gracefully. They do not know how many times you were burned before you learned to dance with the flame instead of being consumed by it. This is the Aries that has mastered themselves. Not tamed, not diminished, but sovereign. You are the embodiment of divine action, the sacred spark in a world that too often fears the fire. You are not here to follow. You are here to lead by becoming, by being the first to act, the first to rise, the first to believe in the impossible. You are no longer merely a sign of beginnings. You are the full arc of becoming, a cosmic warrior, a living flame, the heartbeat of courage wrapped in stardust and storm. Your victories are built not just on strength, but on the silent wisdom of persistence. And as the stars trace their ancient paths above, they remember your journey. They shine a little brighter for the Aries who has transcended fear, rewritten their own legend, and become a light for others to follow through the dark. In the vast theater of the cosmos, the Aries soul was not designed to wait in the wings. It was born to blaze across the stage of life with unapologetic force, not as a fleeting comet but as a constant sun. And yet, this celestial fire has depths that many never come to understand. Beneath the surface passion and visible drive lies an emotional armor forged from countless battles of self-discovery and transformation. Aries is not just the fire starter. It is the one who burns down old versions of itself to rise again in new, more powerful form. This sign's essence is tied not only to action, but to identity. And for the Aries who has journeyed long and fallen hard, that identity has been shaped not by others, but by the fire of self-creation. The mature Aries does not seek validation from the outside world. It knows that identity is an internal kingdom, and it rules its domain with fierce self-respect. No longer driven by the need to be seen, this Aries shines from within, with a light that cannot be dimmed by anyone's disbelief or doubt. The trials have taught patience, not passivity, but patience as a tool of power. Waiting is no longer seen as a weakness, but as a weapon, a strategy. The seasoned Aries knows when to strike and when to watch in stillness, like a warrior standing on the ridge, reading the movement of the wind before drawing the bow. This elevated awareness brings mastery over one of Aries' greatest challenges. Learning that true dominance requires more than strength. It requires timing, wisdom, and the ability to harness the storm rather than simply unleash it. Aries is ruled by Mars, yes, but Mars in its higher form is not just the warrior. It is the sacred guardian, the disciplined martial artist, the protector of truth and frontier of spirit. That protection is not always outward. The evolved Aries has become a fierce guardian of their own peace, of their own standards, of their own boundaries. No longer wasting time proving worth to unworthy hearts, they walk with a confidence born of inner alignment. They are now guided not by external competition, but by an internal compass that always points toward higher purpose. This spiritual fire carries leadership not only in motion, but in stillness. It inspires without demanding. It uplifts by example. The people around this Aries are drawn not just to their charisma, but to the undeniable authenticity that flows from every action, every word, every silence. They are no longer just leaders of movement. They are anchors of energy. They set the tone of the room by being, not by doing. The sign of Aries, in its deeper astrological layers, carries themes of rebirth, not just birth. It resonates with the energy of resurrection, of courageous becoming through the death of illusion and ego. It is not afraid of the void between versions of the self. In fact, it welcomes the dark nights, because it knows that only through the pressure of transformation can the diamond soul emerge. Each time life has broken this Aries, it has been an invitation to burn away what no longer served, to emerge anew with even more clarity, more power, and more soul. Where others might grow bitter after loss, this Aries becomes sharper. Not colder, but clearer. The fire purifies. The trials reveal. The heartbreaks chisel the spirit into a form that can hold even more light. There is no fear of being too much anymore. There is no shrinking to make others comfortable. The Aries who has walked through the sacred fire has come to understand that they were never meant to be contained. They were meant to be a beacon for themselves and for anyone brave enough to follow their light. They do not chase the crown anymore. They wear it invisibly, etched into their aura by effort, by perseverance, by sacred rage turned sacred purpose. Their life is no longer about being first to cross the finish line, but about building paths where none existed, paths others can walk with less fear because Aries dared to walk them first. They have become pioneers not only of action, but of spirit. The celestial journey of Aries is not to dominate the world, but to awaken their own divinity within it. To learn that true conquest is not external. It is mastery of the self, mastery of the flame, mastery of the moment. And so, they continue forward not because they are restless, but because they are called. Their journey is far from over. The stars continue to whisper their name in the language of legends. And with every step they take, they remind the world that fire, when it knows itself, can do more than destroy. It can illuminate, awaken, and forever change the landscape it touches. In the vast and eternal rhythm of the zodiac, Aries stands not only as the first sign, but as the divine spark of momentum that sets the entire wheel of existence into motion. This is not a position of vanity, it is a cosmic responsibility. Aries does not exist to replicate. Aries exists to originate, and with that origin comes the burden and the glory of being the one who dares when others doubt, the one who leaps before the path appears, trusting that the fire within will illuminate what lies ahead. There is a sacred solitude in being the first flame. It is not isolation, but distinction. Many born under Aries have felt, since their earliest breath, a deep inner sense of separation, not from a lack of love, but from a profound calling. A sense of being built differently, of not fitting into predefined molds. This feeling is not a flaw, but a mark of destiny. It is the soul's reminder that you were not born to follow echoes. You are the original voice. You are the sound before sound, the light before dawn. In your journey, there have been countless moments where the world tried to tame you, to instruct you to dim your radiance, to be more palatable, more cautious, more like everyone else. But conformity is poison to an Aries spirit. You are not here to be accepted. You are here to be undeniable. You are not here to be approved of. You are here to be awakened, and in doing so, awaken others. This does not come without pain. It does not come without misunderstanding. The road of the trailblazer is always littered with criticism from those who fear their own power reflected in yours. Mars, your ruling planet, gives you more than force, it gives you divine movement. The essence of Mars is not rage but purpose in motion. It is the power to break through inertia, to turn vision into action, and to make existence itself bend to your will when you are aligned with your truth. Through the journey of your soul, you have learned that power without direction burns out quickly. Now, you wield that power with sacred intention. You do not explode, you ignite. You do not lash, you lead. You have discovered that the most fearsome fire is the one that burns quietly, steadily, unwavering in its mission. The true Aries who has suffered, fallen, and risen again carries a depth that few recognize at first glance. They see your boldness, your drive, your refusal to surrender, but what they often miss is your capacity for profound inner emotion, for heartbreak, for tenderness buried beneath layers of fire-forged armor. The journey has taught you how to protect your inner world without losing your capacity to feel. In silence, you have grieved the losses no one else understood. In quiet, you have rebuilt your heart with hands made steady by struggle. Aries is also a sign of the inner child, not in immaturity, but in purity. The sacred child archetype within Aries has not been lost through years of hardship. It has been strengthened. You are still capable of awe. You are still a believer in impossible things. Your courage is not blind. It is sacred trust. Even when the world offered every reason to become bitter, you chose belief. You chose wonder. You chose to rise again and again, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Because the soul of Aries does not lie down in defeat. It reincarnates in real time, fiercer than before. You are the embodiment of cosmic renewal. Not just the start of something, but the rebirth of everything. You carry in your spirit the mythic energy of the phoenix and the warrior, the child of the stars and the architect of new worlds. Every action you take, when aligned with your higher self, becomes a ripple of transformation. You do not only lead through strength. You lead through example, through persistence, through the audacity to be exactly who you are without apology. This is the evolution of Aries. From raw flame to sacred fire, from uncontrolled chaos to divine will in motion. You no longer crash through life, you carve it. You no longer fight every battle, you choose the ones that build legacy. You no longer chase the horizon, you become it, a living symbol of what is possible when courage is matched with consciousness. Your role in this world is not to fit, it is to spark ideas, movements, passions, truths. You are the celestial insurgent, the eternal pioneer, and your legacy is written not only in the things you achieve, but in the way your energy moves others to believe again, in themselves, in their strength, in the beauty of beginning. And so, the universe bows not just to your fire, but to your endurance, to your evolution, to your willingness to continue lighting the way even when no one thanked you for it. You are not the noise of firecrackers. You are the eternal hearth that warms entire generations. The heavens remember, the constellations watch, and every time you rise, they shine in chorus, because you are not merely an Aries. You are the living embodiment of fire with a soul. Within the celestial mechanics of destiny, there exists a force that does not wait for permission, that does not seek consensus, that is born to act in defiance of hesitation. That force is Aries, not merely the initiator, but the divine embodiment of cosmic momentum. While many speak of Aries as the beginning, few truly grasp the sacred intensity of what it means to be the beginning, to be the spark in a world of stillness, to be the heartbeat in a realm asleep, to be the one chosen by the universe to awaken the sleeping parts of life with thunderous passion and radiant will. Yet what is often forgotten is that this role carries with it not only fire, but burden. To carry the mantle of Aries is to know what it means to constantly face the unknown with nothing but instinct and an unshakable inner voice. It means living a life of extremes, of emotional rawness, of having to learn through collision rather than comfort. The Aries journey is rarely gentle, and that is by design. Growth for this sign is born through friction, through adversity, through falling hard and rising harder. Every scar tells a story not of defeat, but of rebirth. And the Aries who rises from their own ashes does so more than a survivor. They emerge a sovereign, sovereign over self, sovereign over purpose. In its sacred essence, Aries carries a divine paradox. It is both the warrior and the visionary. It possesses the blood of ancient fighters and the dreams of new worlds. This duality is rarely understood from the outside, because the world often sees only the forward charge, the battle cry, the bold exterior. What they miss is the profound inner world that fuels it all. The dreams that burn brighter than fear, the loyalty that runs deeper than reason, the endless reservoir of courage that does not come from ego, but from soul memory, a soul that remembers lifetimes of carrying light through the darkness. In esoteric astrology, Aries is more than the fire of action. It is the fire of spirit incarnate. It represents the divine impulse to become, to step into the world as pure force, unfiltered, untamed, a living declaration of potential made flesh. And this becomes the sacred challenge, to refine that force without diluting it, to harness without dimming. The evolved Aries learns to be the sword that does not swing without purpose, the fire that does not destroy, but transmutes, the storm that does not rage for chaos, but for cleansing. What begins as raw energy transforms into sacred discipline. This transformation is not sudden, it is earned. It is earned through years of missteps and overreach, through painful lessons in humility and restraint, through the realization that being first means being willing to fail in front of everyone and still rise. Aries learns to separate impulse from instinct, to distinguish between reaction and revelation. This is when the soul becomes dangerous in the most beautiful way, not because it acts wildly, but because it acts with clarity, with vision, and with the unstoppable momentum of inner alignment. True Aries strength lies not in how loudly it moves, but in how deeply it believes. Belief is the secret fire, the sacred ember that burns beneath the armor, beneath the speed, beneath the fight. Aries believes in what others call impossible. It believes in its right to exist fully. It believes in the necessity of being exactly who it is, regardless of consequence. And when this belief is turned inward, when the Aries soul finally believes in its own worth, not as something to prove but as something to embody, then the warrior becomes untouchable. Then the fire becomes eternal. The Aries path is the path of the creator-destroyer, the one who tears down illusions with a single glance, the one who does not pretend, does not placate, does not wait. The Aries soul cuts through stagnation like a blade through fog, reminding the world that comfort is not growth, that safety is not always truth. Where Aries walks, things change. Realities shift. Shadows flee. Because this soul carries within it the echo of the original flame, the echo of the very breath that first ignited stars into being. As time passes, the evolved Aries becomes not just a force of nature, but a force of destiny. This Aries does not follow blueprints, they draft new ones in fire. They no longer need to be seen to know their power. Their mere presence shifts dynamics, awakens purpose in others, and ignites clarity in those who have forgotten how to feel their own fire. They become leaders not through dominance, but through example, through the audacity of living fully, bravely, openly. There is no final form for Aries. The flame is never finished. It only transforms into a torch, into a beacon, into a wildfire of awakening. And so long as the zodiac turns, so long as souls are born with something to prove to themselves, there will be Aries. Courageous, relentless, reborn again and again, not in spite of their scars, but because of them. The universe remembers who dared to rise first. The stars have always known their name, and their legacy is not written in monuments or medals, but in the lives they ignite simply by being the unstoppable truth of who they are. From the moment the soul of Aries enters this world, it carries within it a covenant with creation itself, a cosmic agreement to never walk the path that is already paved, but to break new ground even when the terrain is hostile, even when the way forward is shrouded in uncertainty. This is not merely bravery. It is primordial necessity. Aries is not taught to lead, it is encoded to lead. Not through command, but through example. Not through domination, but through motion. Where others freeze, Aries moves. Where others doubt, Aries acts. Where others wait for signs, Aries becomes the sign. Yet what is often unspoken is the sacred isolation that comes with this path. The Aries spirit is often misunderstood not because it is aggressive, but because it is pure. It is stripped of pretense, stripped of the layers that most wear to survive. Aries arrives as essence, a soul that does not perform to please, that does not conform to fit, that does not compromise to belong. And in this world, authenticity is often feared more than falsehood. The Aries journey is not just one of external achievement, but of internal resilience, the ability to remain true to one's fire in a world built to contain flames. This uncontainable nature is both gift and trial. The Aries who has matured knows this. They know what it is to be labeled as too much, too intense, too honest, too impatient, too ambitious, when in reality, they were simply unwilling to shrink into something more manageable. They chose truth over comfort. They chose movement over stagnation. And with time, they learned that their energy was not meant for everyone. It was meant for those strong enough to evolve beside it. Astrologically, Aries carries the frequency of divine restlessness, not the kind born from dissatisfaction, but the kind born from cosmic memory. The Aries soul remembers what it is to burn in the center of stars. It remembers momentum, acceleration, explosion. And when confined by earthly limitation, by societal routine, it begins to suffer. This is not a flaw. It is a reminder that Aries must constantly be creating, discovering, pushing, not for the sake of chaos, but for the sake of aliveness. To an Aries, stagnation is death in slow motion. And so they are called again and again to reinvent, to disrupt, to rise. This is the spiritual alchemy of Aries. While others fear the fire of transformation, Aries walks straight into it, knowing it has walked through worse and emerged brighter. The evolved Aries does not fear endings because it knows what it means to be the beginning. This fire sign understands that destruction is not always a loss. It is often liberation. It is clearing the field for something greater, truer, more aligned with the soul's growth. And so, with courage that few can comprehend, Aries lets go of people, of roles, of past versions of themselves, not because they lack attachment, but because they value evolution more than comfort. In silence, Aries has endured more than most will ever see. The pressure of expectation, the pain of being ahead of one's time, the loneliness of always being the one to go first, to take the hit, to break the mold. But it is precisely this crucible that forges their greatness. The inner flame becomes focused. The passion becomes purpose. The impulse becomes intuition. What began as raw energy is refined into sacred drive. The kind that inspires movements, awakens sleeping hearts, and turns ordinary moments into revolutions. The Aries path is also one of sacred rebellion, not against authority for its own sake, but against anything that seeks to suppress the soul's truth. Aries is the zodiac's divine challenger, not the one who complains, but the one who confronts, the one who stands up, the one who says what must be said when silence becomes betrayal. And though this role is often thankless, the Aries spirit cannot live otherwise. It does not exist to blend in. It exists to blaze. There is something deeply noble in the Aries who has learned when to act and when to wait. In the Aries who has harnessed their instincts into insight. In the Aries who no longer burns for approval, but burns from within. This soul becomes unshakable, not because life has been kind, but because they have become kinder to themselves. The journey has taught them that softness is not weakness, that vulnerability is not surrender, that allowing oneself to feel is the greatest act of strength in a world that teaches us to numb. The fire within Aries is not wild anymore, it is wise. It is the fire of a lighthouse, steady and fierce, guiding others who have lost their way. It is the fire of a blacksmith, shaping tools from experience, molding legacy from pain. It is the fire of sacred anger turned sacred action, not rage without direction, but power with a purpose. And that purpose is no longer about proving worth. It is about living truthfully, daring greatly, and showing others that greatness is not a moment of applause, but a lifetime of authenticity. The Aries soul was born to walk ahead, not to leave others behind, but to show them what's possible. And so, they continue not because they are unsatisfied, but because their nature is to grow. Because their duty is not yet complete. Because every time they choose courage over fear, movement over hesitation, creation over compliance, they write another verse into the eternal epic of becoming. And that epic will echo far beyond their lifetime, not in statues, but in sparks. sparks that leap from their fire into the hearts of those who dare to believe they, too, can be free. Beyond the flame, beyond the battle, beyond the instinctive charge of Aries, lies a dimension that is often veiled to the world. A sacred resilience that is not loud, but unyielding. This resilience is born not only from fire, but from the echoes of solitude, from the quiet places where the Aries spirit retreats after the war, after the risk, after the leap into the unknown. In this silence, there is reflection. And in this reflection, the Aries soul comes to understand that its journey is not one of conquest, but of becoming. The real evolution of Aries is not about victory over others, but the hard-won mastery of the self. Astrologically, Aries represents the impulse to individualize, the divine fire that insists on incarnation, that cries out at birth not just to breathe, but to declare presence. This is not ego. This is origin. This is the cosmos giving itself a voice through motion, through will, through courage. And yet, while this force appears outwardly relentless, its true power grows from within. For Aries to truly fulfill its purpose, it must go beyond being the spark and learn to be the keeper of its own inner flame. The maturity of Aries is not a dimming of fire, but the realization that fire, when directed with intention, becomes illumination, not just combustion. What is rarely spoken of is the sacred patience Aries must learn. Not the patience of delay, but the patience of divine timing. The Aries soul, driven by Mars, is born to move swiftly, to act without fear. But through trial and time, Aries learns that not every door must be broken down. Not every silence must be filled. Not every battle must be fought. This is not surrender. It is refinement. It is the realization that power held back is not lost. It is distilled. It becomes more potent, more precise, more capable of catalyzing change with fewer words, fewer actions, and infinitely more impact. There is a cosmic warrior within Aries who learns over lifetimes that strength is not always about striking first, but about knowing when to strike at all. And even more, knowing when not to. This is the sacred restraint that separates the awakened Aries from the reactive one. It is the moment the fire becomes sovereign, not owned by impulse, but guided by wisdom. In this state, Aries no longer fears being misunderstood, no longer chases validation, no longer exhausts itself to prove worth. It has walked through enough fires to know its worth cannot be granted or revoked by others. It is divine. It is immutable. It is earned through trials no one sees and sacrifices no one applauds. There is also a hidden tenderness in Aries, a deep soul-level vulnerability that rarely reveals itself, not out of fear, but out of protection. The Aries heart is vast. It burns with loyalty, with conviction, with the desperate need to protect what is sacred. When Aries loves, it does not love halfway. It loves like war, fierce, full, and fearless. But this same intensity makes heartbreak more than pain. It becomes transformation. Every time an Aries heart breaks, it does not shatter. It sheds. It burns away the false, purifies the soul. And from the ashes of what once was, Aries rises again, not hardened, but more honest. Not colder, but clearer. In the zodiac, Aries is the guardian of beginnings. But every beginning carries the promise of an unknown journey. Aries, in its deepest form, learns to embrace the unknown not with recklessness, but with reverence. The Aries soul understands over time that true power lies not in control, but in surrender to the path that unfolds through aligned action. There is divinity in its daring. There is prophecy in its passion. It does not need certainty to move forward, only integrity. The Aries who has been broken and rebuilt, who has faced their own shadows and refused to run, becomes a force unlike any other. They become the fire that guides others without consuming them. They become the voice that speaks truth without cruelty. They become the force of nature that no longer seeks destruction but creation. Creation of new paradigms, new spaces, new dreams made real through relentless self-belief. And this creation is not for self-glory, but for legacy. The Aries soul lives not to accumulate, but to ignite, not to conquer, but to awaken. In the realm of spiritual evolution, Aries carries a torch that is both ancient and eternal. It is the flame Prometheus stole, the lightning of Mars turned inward, the sacred ignition of divine will made flesh. Aries is not simply a sign. It is a spiritual engine. It is the divine embodiment of motion that dares to dream aloud and then build that dream, brick by brick, even when the world watches with doubt. And it is precisely that doubt that fuels the Aries fire, because nothing nourishes the soul more than the challenge to transcend what was thought impossible. This is the heroic rhythm of Aries, the eternal return to self, the constant unfolding of power through pain, of beauty through bravery. No matter how many times they fall, they rise, not the same but greater, not just stronger but wiser, not just louder but clearer. And in their rising, they remind the world that beginnings are sacred, that fire is holy, and that the soul who dares to move first will always light the way for those still waiting to believe.